Yeah, sure. I agree. Collaboration is enormous. And I will say a couple of the resources that are out there. So we didn't use CALM exactly. We used a motivational interviewing based lethal means counseling approach developed by Peter Britton and Craig Bryan. And so you can find on the National Center for Veteran Studies YouTube page an example of Craig Bryan administering our protocol. Also on the New Jersey Gun Violence Research Center's YouTube page or our Twitter handle, you can find, I want to say 11 free videos I made with two of my clinicians, each one about 1 to 3 minutes, talking about specific ways about how can a conversation about safe storage go well or go wrong? What do you need to know? Do you need to be a gun owner yourself? What if the person isn't open to this conversation? What do you do? Those kinds of sort of practical things, I think, sometimes make people anxious about having this conversation on the front end, especially if they themselves are not gun owners and don't have any experience. I think people feel anxious about that, and that's it can make them not want to do it. And so I just putting a few more resources out there. And again, I think it's actually vital that these types of tools extend beyond the healthcare system. And I'll come back to that in a minute. But your first question was about the collaboration thing, and that was front and center on our approach here. I think that the idea of autonomy is always a big deal in any sort of clinical interaction. But when you're talking about gun culture, I think autonomy is particularly important. Folks are not wanting outsiders to come in and tell them what to do with their guns. That's just not what they're looking for. The conversation is so politicized, it is so difficult to navigate. I often joke and ask people to raise their hand if they can think of the last time they had an argument with someone about firearms and changed the other person's mind, or that person changed their mind. Everyone's like, no, it doesn't happen, because it's any argument just gets people to dig in. And that's the whole idea of motivational interviewing, is that you don't push people, you help guide them. It's directive, but you leverage their own intrinsic motivation to change. You recognize and validate their ambivalence, and work within their value system to find a way to get further along a spectrum of safety. That when you try to do these forceful interventions, you might get momentary change, whether that's out of guilt or obligation, but you don't get sustained change. And you need sustained change on this, right? Like, you need people to adopt a new practice that they're going to maintain now and in the future. And that requires buy-in from them. And I think that's where that sort of ties into, again, you mentioning CALM being adapted for non-healthcare providers. And that's a big part of our plans at the New Jersey Gun Violence Research Center this coming year, is to train a lot of folks, faith leaders, barbers, gun shop retailers, folks who come in contact with gun owners very often, not necessarily to do a lethal means counseling session, right? That's not how those conversations go, but how to feel comfortable and empowered to have successful conversations on this, because the messaging matters so much here. And so the collaborative thing was a big deal in our trial for a number of reasons, but one of them was because we're outsiders, right? Most of us in my trial, and on the clinician side, we're not gun owners. Not all of us. There's some who are, but we're coming from a university talking to service members about their firearms. We needed to be collaborative and very clear that we're not coming in telling what people to do, because we're going to get shut out immediately.